Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Flashbang Wallop. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and looking forward to a prosperous and happy 2025. I have all my three friends with me here tonight, so let's go to Damo first. Damo, how was your Christmas?
Very good. Always really good. Very exciting. Had a great time. And the lead up was really good. I had the new grandson. We had a christening, and that was entertaining. The christening, it was a good chance because I was taking photographs as well as being one of the organisers. And then, yes, I had a few photo walks. So, yeah, it's all been really good.
Good, good. Neil, how was your Christmas?
I was sick most of it, to be honest.
Join the club. Yeah, it's going around, I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
yeah, back in the UK. Soon, the day after landing in the UK, came down with really bad cold, which I put down to all the kids that were let out of school early and mixing with them. Um, yeah, but it was good otherwise. Yeah, yep. Flew back Christmas Day. Great day to fly because there's nobody around. Nobody around. The airport's quiet. There's no rushing anywhere. You just have to get to the airport. It's the only downside of that. But yeah, it was good.
Great, great. And Ian, how was your Christmas?
Yeah, yeah, I can't complain. It was a nice Christmas. I had some good time off from work, so back to it now. I'm not very impressed with 2025 so far. I've had to pay out for my car. The tumble dryer's given up,
Oh,
and we
We're
get
a
to the
happy bunch.
weekend, and the weather is absolutely abysmal. So
yeah.
camera photography is just non-existent for me at the
We
minute.
are a happy bunch.
We are,
Yeah.
we are,
Hey,
and we
hey.
haven't even received our credit card bills yet. So
Oh,
right, okay. So what we're going to do tonight is our usual format. We're going to talk about some news items that we've been looking at, some couple of nice cameras that have come through, and we'll have a general discussion about some photographic issues that have cropped up in the last few weeks. So let's kick off. First of our news items that we're going to discuss is Ian, I believe you're not very happy with the Formula One backgrounds. Do you want to give us some
Well,
color on this?
yeah, I mean, I'm not interested in Formula One as it happens, but yeah, Amazon have been called out for using an AI image to advertise a show, Racing Through Time: History of the Grand Prix, and you can see it. It's so obvious that there's like cars with like six wheels or double spoilers, and it's just yeah, really odd. But it's just strange that Amazon would choose to use an AI image rather than just maybe a screen grab from the actual show itself, or it just goes to show these companies, they're happy to use these images rather than pay someone for an image. It just
And
just
that's
shows
it.
you, don't it?
Yeah. And that's it in a nutshell. And there was a discussion in a forum about that people are just trying to cut the middleman out and hoping that no one notices.
I haven't seen the images, but I do remember there were some six-wheel Formula One cars back in the
Yeah, they
70s and the
were.
early
Yeah,
80s.
yeah.
The Tyrrell was one, and the March was another. Um, but yeah, I said if it's a modern car with all that kind of stuff, it just goes to
But
show
they
you.
they certainly didn't like that look like these six-wheel cars. That's for sure.
That's it, Ian. They're trying to cut out the middleman. There's lots of forums at the moment saying that the graphic designers are just going down the AI route because it's quick, easy, and saves them a lot of work.
Where will this leave the photo library people like Getty and people like that? Will they start generating
Or
their own images so they don't even have to pay out the photographers?
yeah,
Well, I've been going down,
potentially.
Well, stock. Why would you pay for a stock image? I
yeah.
mean, I've
Mm.
been using some stock images just for thumbnails and just generating them through AI. I mean, I'd normally generate a couple of simple ones and then stack them together. Take
I
the
mean,
bits and
the other way to look at it is to go, well, Amazon have been called out on this because it looks rubbish, but then that's coming from photographers. I think the general public don't care. That's the
Yeah.
problem. I think, you know. So yeah, I think it's here to stay, isn't it, to a degree, AI, unfortunately.
Quality will come through. I mean, we always get worried about these other things, but it will all settle down, I'm sure.
It'd be interesting to see how that affects all the photography of the year photographs and stuff like that. Are you submitting a real image or is it something that you've generated yourself? And does
well,
that count? If
a
you've
lot of these
generated the image, does that count?
a lot
Well,
of these
Instagram
places
will
that
pick you up for if it finds an AI image straight away.
yeah.
But how long it can carry on catching you out on an AI image, it's difficult to know.
Okay. So as who was the guy in oh, he's got me now. So it used to be a TV program, and the guy used to say, "Be careful out there." I think that applies to photographers now,
Oh,
doesn't it? Yeah, yeah. Oh, Hill Street Blues. There, that's where it was from.
yes.
Yep, he used to say, "Be careful when you get out there." So I think that applies to photographers now. Be careful what you take and what you submit. So moving on from that, who wants to talk about this Adobe ditching its cheapest photographer's
Well,
plan?
they're not ditching it. They've increased the price.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
everybody's been increasing prices. They're not ditching it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of this until my friend told me about it actually, because I mean, it doesn't actually affect me because I have the slightly up plan, which is not affected. But if you're on the, I think it's 9.99
Yeah,
photography plan,
cheapest.
it's
Keep going,
going
keep
up
going.
from the confusing thing is it's going up from January, but it doesn't work like that. It depends where you are in your contract. So if you're say 4 months into your 12-month contract, you're still going to be paying 9.99 until the end of your contract, but the price goes up in January. So if your contract happened to renew in January, then you're going to be paying the new price from then. There's a couple that you can get around it. If you go onto the yearly plan, you can pay the current price. They're keeping that price, so you can still get the same value for 12 months. So it's just sort of a public announcement warning. It doesn't bother me. I think we haven't had a price increase for years. I still think it's good value for money. You know, even if you're on the lowest plan at 15 quid a month, what's that? Free pints, isn't it? Down the pub
The
these
other,
days.
the other thing, the
It's
other thing, if you're prepared to front the money up, normally around November time and sometimes in the new year, they quite often discount the plans. So you're paying like 70% of whatever it is for the annual. And you have to buy the annual plan and you have to front the
Mhm.
money up front. But you can buy two or three of them, and that's you for the next 3 years done. So you
Yeah.
can
So
get it quite cheaply. I mean, I'm paid up now till I think 20 August 2026 by doing that.
yeah, so there's ways around it. I mean, personally, I still think it's good value for money if you're using it regularly. Um, you know, it's a people it makes you laugh when these things happen because photographers then there's been a bit of an outcry about this, Adobe print it up, it's like a 50% increase, blah, blah, blah. They're quite happy to go and spend 3 or 4 grand on a camera and 2 grand on a lens, but when it comes to actually £15 a month or £10 a month on editing the photos, they'll do anything to not pay it or find some dodgy software from somewhere where they don't have to pay it. It's just I find it laughable at times.
I mean, there are alternatives out there like Capture One, which you can just pay an annual fee. Uh, and there's GIMP if you really want to get learning
There's
in.
a new one I saw, Zona.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
I was reading about. So I've been reading all the photography magazines because we've got Apple News Plus for 3 months for free. So I've been reading the magazines. There's one called Zona, which is
Is
up and coming.
wasn't Aperture thinking about making a comeback? Or, no, was that Final Cut Pro? But that was the Apple one, wasn't it?
Well, Apple acquired is it Pixelmator?
Pixelmator.
Yes,
Pixelmator,
but I
yeah.
don't I don't think they're Apple are not going to get into the Lightroom type business again. I don't think they'll just make photos as good as they can. I don't think they're going to go into proper a Lightroom style, aperture style
Well,
photo management. I don't think.
I don't personally use Adobe, but you'd be surprised now how much work you can do in photos. It's actually
Mm,
they've
mm.
they've
Yeah.
increased it bit by bit by bit. I know we all used to love Aperture, which was the professional one, but photos now, for a freebie, it's actually pretty good. You can do an awful lot in it. It's very
Yeah,
surprising.
I back that up. I tried to. I was editing. I took a shot on my phone over Christmas, and I was trying to remove something in the background. There was a post coming up in the background. It was doing my head in. I tried Lightroom on the phone, and it didn't do a very good job of it. I went into Photos and used what do they call it? The erase. What does Apple call it?
Uh,
Can't remember. The eraser tool. What do they call it?
yeah.
Cleanup tool, and that did it perfectly. So yeah, it is good. Photos is good for basic edits, but it's
And
getting better as well.
But if
the other
you want to
thing,
make up a quick, dirty slideshow of stuff you've taken, it really does that extremely well. You just choose it, hit a button, and it will present you with a slideshow.
I
That is
think
many
quite
I
clients
impressive.
these days, they're coming out with film simulations that just your simple JPEG, if you get the exposure and everything right, you keep the film simulation because you tend to lose it if you can shoot in RAW and then go in to mess around with it.
Yeah.
I'd
And
like to, at this
other
point,
people
make a
like
public announcement that Martin's video this week keeps coming and going, and if it is affecting your viewing, please keep with us. It is rather entertaining.
I, I, it's okay, Dodgy. I can edit, so we'll see. Okay, let's move on. The other thing that we want to talk about was some Nikon rumors that we saw, Dodgy, about
It's not the
um,
rumors that they've gone into business with, well, they've been working with Mitsubishi Fuso, who make trucks. So they're using their camera technology for help solving issues with using automatic control of trucks, well, or vehicles, but I think it's going to be mainly trucks and buses because that's who the company they're working with. That's what they deal with. So yeah, they've been developing that since 2020 with them, which is quite interesting.
Really hard to tell from the image, isn't it? Because it looks well,
Yeah,
there's no scale, but it looks quite small, and it almost looks modular, almost like they're building it in a way that you can just insert it into places.
yeah. I,
Yeah,
I would imagine it's Nikon providing the optics and the engine that drives the optics, and then there's some sort of software on the other end processing whatever the truck needs for automation. Um, but yeah, they've been doing this for a while, and they're actually showing it at CES, which kicks off this week, or will have kicked off probably by the time you've seen this.
okay.
It's just
I
like
might,
Martin's kicked off again.
you got to keep that in. That's brilliant.
yeah. Sorry
Yeah,
about that, folks. It's I'm trying to use my phone as a continuity camera, and it has a mind of its own tonight. It's doing all these weird and wonderful tricks. Okay. We mentioned there about that, and we said about some new cameras. They are Panasonic, aren't they? The ones that we were looking at, these new two, the
Yeah, I thought
G97
this.
and
Yeah,
the
I got this.
Z99.
Yeah, I got this email from Wex. I think it was literally like a couple of days after Christmas, and I just thought it was really odd timing. Because they've missed that sort of Christmas, if there is a Christmas market for photography, I'm sure there is. Um, but they actually look really sort of decent little cameras. So the first one's a G97, which is it's a micro four thirds. It's sort of to sit between their sort of low end and their high end. Um, they do it either body only, which is 699, or this. I found this really interesting. So you can get it with the 14 to 140 mil 3.5 to 5.6 lens. On Wex, that lens alone is 699 quid.
something's not right
So
with pricing, really, is it?
um, no, 619, sorry. So it seems like the bod that makes the body an absolute bargain if you buy it 899 for body and lens. So it's 20 megapixels, got five axis stabilization. The only downside would be it's contrast autofocus rather than phase. So you're not talking sort of sports wildlife photography with this camera to a degree. Um, but a nice little camera. I mean, I rave about my little Lumix Micro Four Thirds. This is a slightly step up from that, and yeah, nice little camera. And I think the thing that piqued my interest with this is I bagged on Panasonic a few months ago with the S9, and that was, I know that one's full frame, but that one's still like 1,300 quid body only on Wex. And when it came out at the time, I said it's just too much money for what it is. No viewfinder, no hot shoe, just too much money. Whereas this, I think, is really keenly priced. Um, and the other one that was announced was the TZ99. And I've got a friend that's got like a TZ200 or TZ100. It's a really nice little camera. It's got equivalent to 24 to 720 mil. This is a compact camera, which again I found really interesting because obviously we've talked a lot about the compact market maybe not doing so well, and yet Panasonic have released a new compact camera, which shows maybe it's making a little bit of a resurgence.
One hell of a zoom on.
400, yeah, £469. It's not cheap, Is it enough to entice people that have got their smartphones and stuff to buy a compact camera? Not so sure, but Yeah, nice little camera. I found it interesting announcements from Panasonic. Just odd timing, maybe.
I think there's a place in the market for something that's more than a smartphone, but isn't as much as it isn't a big camera.
Mm.
Because where people are like interested in photography, but they want to do more than they can on the smartphone.
Yeah, and if you look at the pictures on this, I mean, it is, and as I say, my friend's got one. I mean, the lens is motorized. It comes out quite a way,
Mm.
but when it's closed up, yeah, I mean, it's a tiny little camera. It is small,
Yeah,
so it is definitely travel worthy. So yeah, I just thought they were interesting, quite keenly priced items. I thought.
It's sold at the travel-friendly market, isn't it? Looking at the other statistics of it and that.
Mhm.
That to me would almost appear to be a good emergency camera to have in your backpack if you're doing a shoot, because
I
it,
Mm.
think
it would
I think
cover an
if you
awful
would,
lot of things. If you dropped your camera or your kit went wrong or something, to be able to have something like that tucked away in a recess in your camera bag, just to be able to pick up something like that, that might be very useful. It
you
does
wouldn't you,
it
you
does
wouldn't you wouldn't
4K
do that.
video as well at 30 frames, which again for me that's quite impressive for such a small piece of kit. Interesting. And the
I'd see
price,
it more as more for the traveller,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the person that that wants something more than a phone, but that they don't want to carry anything big, especially if you're hiking. It's the biggest problem
Mm.
I have if I go up hiking or anything, is what not to take because
Mm.
you weight
We
and
had that.
space.
We had that. I had that issue when we went off on our Australia trip last year, about do I take the camera bag? But we were going away for 3 weeks, so there would have been the camera bag, my computer bag, suitcase, all that kind of stuff. It just started to get beyond it. But then I thought, well, it's a golden opportunity. I'm not going to be going to Australia again anytime soon. So do I take it? But in the end, I thought no. I did leave it behind, and I relied solely on my phone camera. And
Yeah.
it didn't let me down. The 16 was brilliant. So
Yeah,
yeah,
when we went to Dorset, I mean, there's two kids, a dog. There just wasn't room in the car for me to take a load of camera gear, and I made a conscious decision just to take my little travel tripod, which is maybe that long, and my little Lumix, which the bag is like tiny, and it performed brilliantly, for just landscapey type stuff, days out. Yeah, ideal. I think sometimes as photographers, we get so carried away with, or just because we've got the gear that, you try and lug it all, but it's just not always worth it.
we're going to move on to some discussions now, folks. We had a couple of items that we were chatting about ourselves. The first one I want to kick off with was it your friend Ian that was asking, do you use an iPad or do you use a Mac for doing photo editing?
To
No,
And
give
that
us demos from that.
was
was
it
me,
your?
my friend. Yeah, it's a guy called Dave Edwards who does. He's an accomplished photographer, but he was just trying to think of what to buy, an iPad or to use to get a Mac. And I it's a difficult question because looking through I would go for a Mac all the time, but then did some looking around the internet on it, and people like the iPad screen, and so the iPad screen is what don't use an iPad, so I'm not familiar with the screen resolutions and stuff. But I personally like the Mac, but then of course I might be set in my ways because I notice when anybody younger than me gets hold of the Mac, they want to touch the screen and play around with the screen and use the screen to touch and that, which the Mac doesn't give you the facility of. So I hold it. I said I'd get back to him and let him know what the consensus is. My unless you change my mind, I would always go for a Mac.
So I started editing oh I guess 3 4 years ago, and I was just using mainly the iPad. But there's two or three things that reasons why I don't now. One is I've got to buy a new iPad, and I had a Mac as well, and you end up with a situation. One becomes slow, you need to replace one or the other. You won't replace both. The other thing is the screen is constantly, because you put your fingers on it, it's constantly getting dirty. You're constantly having to clean it to be able to see, is that a mark on the image or is that a mark on my screen? and because you're using your fingers on it, it doesn't matter how good the screen is, you're sticking a nice greasy paw print across that screen and making the image worse every
You've
time.
got a pencil. You can get the pencils, can't you?
You can use a pencil. You can train yourself to use a pencil, but you do use your finger on the screen without a doubt. The other thing is a lot of the software. I'm speaking specifically about Adobe in this instance. You don't get the full suite of options in the software on the iPad that you do on the Mac or even a PC. The software is a different version of the same thing. Now they get closer and closer, but just even like selecting an object, you can select an object using Lightroom on the Mac, but that function isn't there in Lightroom on the iPad. So you have that problem as well. So you're paying for a piece of software and you're not getting all the functionality. Photoshop on the iPad is much better than it used to be, but again, you're not getting all the functionality. You're not getting the stuff that you might use. So there is a big thing there. Now, when I went over to the Mac, you go through this initial pain of, oh, I know how to do that on the iPad. How am I doing it on here? But you soon start to learn shortcuts and ways to do things. It's just a different workflow process. So for me, both tools are good, but the Mac is actually a more powerful tool. Now, if you want to combine the two, you can as well. So the answer might actually be is put your money in the Mac, but if you do use an iPad for, I don't know, reading the news or whatever, you can use that as an extra screen with your Mac. And then, of course, you can put the software onto it, and you can then use your finger on the screen to use the other software. So it is a kind of a workaround you can use and actually get the full functionality of the software. But now I prefer using the Mac, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think Neil's made some very good points there. I mean, I agree. I mean, for me personally, I think obviously it depends on what you're doing, but for me personally, Mac over iPad all the time. I think workflow file management on iPad is difficult. I mean, I like to
It's
rename
better.
my files. I like to keyword my files, and that on iPad is just clunky.
Mm.
I do a lot of focus stacking. That's just not possible on an iPad at the moment. I'm sure it will be in the future. I actually think Apple have answered this question recently in the Mac Mini, 599 for an M4 powered computer in a tiny little square, which I think is just phenomenal value. If you start pricing up an iPad with decent amount of storage in it, you want to add a £200 Apple Pencil, however much they are these days, that it starts to get really pricey with an iPad. I think you value for pound, you're better off with a Mac, I think.
Yeah.
Interestingly, because the one thing that we haven't discussed, the elephant in the room, we've asked the question, the iPad to the Mac. We haven't discussed Windows, and you just touched on storage because iCloud is so clunky and so difficult to use as a backup that you're then resorting to other backups. And I've I'm not in the Windows world, but the Windows has caught up quite a bit to the Mac. So it would be interesting to know whether Windows can offer, or not the Windows, but the various things that are coming out now can offer what the Mac is not offering.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to that I mean, I use a Windows machine for work. I have a Windows machine with Lightroom on it as well. So I do use Windows from time to time with Lightroom. The functionality is exactly the same. The keyboards are obviously slightly different. Silly things like some of the shortcuts are slightly different. Your Command key, the Windows key, etc. Um, whether it's Windows or Mac is purely a preference
Yes, yeah.
I think
of
I think we
what
were talking
what
more
you
about
have.
whether it's not the operating system, whether it's a tablet or a
Yeah,
laptop.
yeah.
I think what you're saying there, the thing that you mentioned, the new Mac Mini, the only problem with that is if you put a decent amount of storage on it, you're paying a huge amount of Apple tax for memory.
You just use
The
Well,
X75.
but that's the same for the iPad, though, isn't
Well, the iPad, yes, if you want, it's still the same rate.
it?
Um,
Yeah.
the thing is, I think it's horses for courses. I've used the iPad quite successfully when I'm trying to edit pictures being able to actually draw in around using a pencil around the area you want to highlight is much easier on an iPad. And it is surprising because the iPads now are as powerful. They contain
Oh
M4
yeah.
chips. They're as powerful as the desktops, but it's more to do with the difference between iOS and Mac OS.
Mm.
So I use Final Cut Pro extensively for my video work, for this sort of work. And although I can do it on an iPad, there are certain features, like you mentioned, Dodzy, that aren't available in iPad Final Cut Pro as opposed to desktop. And although I can do one, the other, and switch backwards and forwards, the problem is if I do some of the color correcting work in Final Cut Pro on the Mac, I can't then transfer that back to the pad to do it on that. So yes, there are limitations because of the difference in the operating systems. But as I said,
And
it can be horses for courses.
yeah. Well, you just made a really good example though to what Neil just said. Like you said, you can take a pencil to do the object selection because you haven't got the object selection option on the iPad,
Yeah.
whereas you can go on the desktop, just say select object, and it'll probably select the object for you.
Yeah,
So
And
yeah,
often
sorry,
selecting the
I'm showing
object.
my dinosaur age there when I'm saying you used to have to draw a
yeah.
pencil around a little object to.
Well,
So I
but
go,
that's the problem. That's the problem on iPad. You will still have to do it that way. Whereas
Yeah.
if you go on the desktop, you just go select object. It will pick your object for you, or
And
you
you,
so
Okay.
or you draw a box over it and it picks the
Yeah.
object. Whereas you can't do that on iPad. And Neil's made that point.
so I'm going to go back and tell them to buy a Mac.
Yeah.
no, but by what
Buy both.
the other part that we haven't discussed about this is how mobile do you want it to be, how portable, to use it all the time out and about. So that's the other thing to consider, really. I mean,
Yeah, but you look at the
that's
like the MacBook Air now with like M3, the power, the
oh yeah,
portability. You get a keyboard, you get a 14-inch screen. I mean, yeah, I think iPad Pros are amazing, but price wise, and if you want to add a keyboard like an Apple Magic Keyboard at 300 quid or whatever they are,
yeah,
I mean, they're just
stupid money,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know,
stupid money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think pound for
As you said,
pound, Mac is the option.
Yeah.
Mac or PC. The only thing I would say about a Mac is
Yeah,
I personally think they have a better longevity than a PC.
Okay, so that you can get your friend to look in and listen to what we just said, Damo, or just say
Bring
to him,
Dave
buy a
on.
Mac.
He's a good
yeah.
lad. He'll come on the
But
show.
just buy both.
Buy
Yeah.
buy a
Yeah.
Mac Mini. The base Mac Mini. It's it's the same. And these days now, because of the change on, you can actually plug in external storage, so you can buy yourself a
Yeah.
1 terabyte drive for a couple hundred quid, and plug it into the MacBook. So yeah,
So I'm sending the show to Dave, and I'll ask Dave to come on a future show to
okay.
find out what he
I
went
mean
for.
what saying about plugging in. I mean that's the other disadvantage with the iPad is if you want to connect, say, a drive and you want to connect an SD card reader, you're going to have to then go down the hub route because you've only got the one port on the iPad. So
Oh,
that's another consideration.
importing images onto an iPad is a nightmare, and it takes so long to update the Lightroom library as well.
Oh,
Yeah, fast connection.
I've never done it.
Yeah, it used to be the bane of my life when I had a large number of sports images, and I'd be someone I've got to process them, I'd stick them into the iPad, and they'd get onto the iPad quick, but then you'd have to wait for Lightroom to add all the images, and they'd be like pop, pop.
Oh,
And you got 200 or 300 images. Oh,
Yeah.
it was a pain.
Any New Year's resolutions, guys? Anything for the new year? Anything you're planning? Or tie it up a bit. Is there a dream camera out there you'd like to see released this year, or you might tempted to get the credit card out for?
No, I've spent
No,
enough.
you're happy. You're quite happy then. Yeah.
I spent enough
Neil,
last year.
Neil's got top end gear already. I do have a wish. I wish manufacturers would consider like a stripped down camera. No bells and whistles, no video, no
Yeah,
fancy AF. Just give me a full frame camera with a nice screen, manual shooting that's not $4,000 because I don't want all the.
I'd agree with you. I don't want all these like extra filters and things you can. I mean, I like some of the stuff you do in camera, but not all that. You can add this effect to it or whatever. Make it waterproof. Make the bloody thing waterproof or Coke proof.
I think
Oak proof, yeah.
what
Pepsi
we've seen
proof.
what we've seen in the last couple of years is just constantly adding and adding and adding, and the price is going up and
And
up and up.
here's
And
here's
it's
the thing: if they're going to add something, and I think it might be Lumex. No, or is it no Olympus do this? They have in-camera gradient filters.
mm, mm,
Now, I don't understand why we haven't seen more of this from other manufacturers.
yeah, no, I don't.
Really don't.
Mm,
I mean, you can only do like stacks so much.
Yeah.
You can't stack them. I think you can only use one
Like
or the other.
internal stabilization, that makes a big difference. It's getting better and
Yeah.
better. That for a few seconds, you might not need to have a tripod, and it's only the tripod for those really long exposures.
see, I'd want to go further though. I'd want to go, no fancy IBIS, no fancy autofocus. Just give me a stripped down full frame camera, good for, landscape off the tripod type
I've got
stuff.
one here that just needs
I was
some
going to
film
say,
filtering.
I've got a couple of old manual cameras from 20
Mm,
years ago. You can have those
Mm.
in if you want.
mm. There's
Go
too
back
many
down that
bells and
route.
whistles on these
I
modern
think
cameras.
I
Yeah.
think one of the problems for the camera manufacturers is the phone manufacturers. What
Yes, the
they want
phone.
cameras
I
these
was
days
just
are the
looking at my
phone.
phone when you were talking about that, and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to be, if I'm going to put my
Yeah.
money in, I'm going to invest in the latest model. How are you getting on with your phone, by the way? And you
You,
enjoy
you,
Oh,
it?
brilliant. To be honest, over Christmas, I didn't get a camera out. I just kept to the phone. And we went for a family walk, and I was gonna take a camera, and I didn't, and I just had the phone. We had some nice light actually over St Michael's Mount. I'll send a couple of pictures. Um, but to be able to go from ultra wide macro to 5 times optical, I mean, it is the perfect little walkabout little camera. To be fair, um, it's making me lazy.
No, it's not. It's, you
Mm,
can concentrate on the
mm.
composition.
if there's not any wishes for new kit, then um, are we going to be doing any competitions this year, guys? Anyone?
I've just entered. I just missed one out on one, but just entered Rugby Photographer of the Year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Entries went in a few days ago.
Who runs that?
Uh, sorry,
Who runs that?
Rugby Journal. Rugby Journal run that. I did it last year, but this year I put a portfolio in as well. So I've done that one. We'll see in
Good luck
February.
with
I've
that.
got
That'd be good.
top
I
three.
actually did. I thought of you. I did some rugby photography just before Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Falmouth versus Bodmin, uh, and it was pissing down. It was dark. It was like shooting at ISO 4000 and ridiculous. Yeah, it was nuts. I didn't get any amazing images. I'll send a couple in, but yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah. So my thing for the new year is I've got a trip coming up to Harris and Lewis in Scotland at the
Ooh,
end of
Oh,
February.
right, okay, good. That'd be good.
I've got a week's holiday up there.
very
So
nice.
looking forward to that.
So will you be focusing primarily sort of landscapey stuff
Yeah,
then for that?
landscapes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's my get away from get away from the sports. I mean, I
yeah.
have. I'm looking up here because I've got a big list. There must be
Looks like he's looking at the mountain when he
Looks like
does
he's
that.
looking at the
15.
mountains.
Yeah,
Thinking,
look
oh,
up
no,
there.
that bit.
Look up there.
That
See the
bit,
goat
yeah.
on the top. No, there's probably. I mean, there's nothing happening here really till about 15th of January. Then it all kicks off. We've got the cross country World Cup that's being held just across the border in France. That's that I should get up for a day of that. I've got basketball kicking off. I've got the basketball cup finals, more football. Rugby doesn't appear until March. Well, it actually appears in February. So I'm not going to Georgia with the Swiss team, but I will be photographing Switzerland versus Spain, and then going to the Netherlands and photographing them against the Netherlands in Amsterdam. So a couple of big weekends coming up. That'll be interesting because it'll be the first time I've really done that and not taken the car and flown with the gear. So I have to be really selective about what I take, and hopefully the weather's good because that would be a nightmare if it was wet.
Mm.
That really would. But yes, there's a lot of plans been put in place. We'll see how it all pans out.
So the other item I want to discuss was the photographer and video show coming up in Excel this year. Unfortunately, we'll get Ian's ire on that in a minute. But yeah, they've moved it to the Excel Centre in London, and that's in March the 20th, I believe. I'll put the date up here
Four
for everyone
days,
to
I
look
think.
at. So Damo and
Normally four
myself
days. Yeah.
Damo and myself will be there. We're going to be looking around the show and making some some film of what we find and what we do. So if anyone's looking to come down and wants to meet up with us, please get in contact and we can meet you on the day. Um, Ian, you were saying, yeah, it's disappointing for you that it's not in Birmingham this year.
Yeah, Birmingham's just easier, less expensive. I mean, for me, from Cornwall, it's the wrong side of London as well. It's like the other side of London. It's just, yeah, it's just not convenient. So I'm going to give it a miss this year, which is a shame because it's always something nice, especially this time of year. Like it's photography for me now. It's been hard. The weather's been shocking, and it's always nice to have that sort of photography show to look forward to. In that March time, and it feels like a more hopeful time in March. Spring's around the corner. I haven't got that to look forward to, unfortunately. But yeah, next year back at the NEC, hopefully. My only concern is, they're already on social media going, "Oh, look, we've got more exhibitors than last year already," and are they gonna, you know, try and sell it as Excel's better than Birmingham and eventually gravitate away from the NEC? That's my concern.
Yeah, I suppose it
We'll
depends on
see.
the number of feet through the door will be the big decider
Yeah.
on that one.
I was going to
Which
say,
they will, which they will get.
end of the day, it'll boil down to cost. These things always boil down to
Oh
money.
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
mean, they may
business,
have
isn't
more
it?
exhibitors, but if it's costing them more to be there,
Mm,
then yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
But they
And
said they're back at 2026, so we'll see.
and these big venues all vie with each other to try and get these big shows, don't they? You've got most major cities and towns that have a big exhibition centre, all trying to pull in these big draws. So we'll see how that goes. So interesting time. Looking forward to 2025. I think there's a lot going on this year again. Should keep photographers interested. There's lots of competitions which we encourage you all to have a go at. Several of us here are going to try and submit to local and the bigger competitions on. I think Landscape of the Year is back on this year, isn't it? Big time. So might try and have a go at that. I'm off to Sweden in a few months' time, so I might be able to do something nice there. So let's go around the table. Ian.
Um, Trying to get out with the camera is yeah,
You snowed in down there at the
yeah.
moment.
No, wet, wet, wet is all
No.
we've got, unfortunately. Yeah, I've got the mojo. I just haven't got the inspiration at the minute. I want to get out, but I just yeah, something will come along that will inspire me, and I'll get out.
Good. Dodgy, what are we going to be doing next few weeks?
Oh, there's a load of sport coming up as from the 15th onwards. But what I really want to do is get up to the mountains, the local mountains here. I had a failed attempt at the weekend, which failed because of my boots, but as it was, the clouds came in as well, so you couldn't see bugger all. There's plenty of snow up there. I did bump into a fox sat under the tree in the middle in the dark, this pair of eyes looking out at me. So yeah, that's what I'd like to get up there and do some of that.
Great. Damo, what are you going to be up to the next few weeks?
I got an exhibition coming up, part of my documentary project. So I'll take some pictures and some video of the exhibition. Uh, so I've had out of all my pictures, I've got 11 pictures to show, and hopefully I'll be able to release them next time and show you what I've been up to.
Is that printed? Or
Yeah, it's going to be printed. We've got a we part of the courses are they're going to print them out, and then we're going to the print works, which is in Moseley, and we're going to have there's about 10 photographers. We've formed our own club now, calling ourselves Negative Space, and
I thought you were called the Prison Gang.
no, we're part of the Prism Gang as well. We're part of the Prism Gang as well. Because there's local talks on the Prism Gang. That's happening. That happens every once a Monday. Fourth Monday in the month, but we've created Negative Space, and therefore we chat about what we're going to do with next projects and stuff like that.
Great. Sounds good. I'm going to be finishing off. I've been asked by the local community shop here in the area to do a documentary stroke promotional video for them. So I was filming all that over the last couple of weekends and hopefully put that together ready for them to see in the next few weeks. So that should keep me out of mischief. So Neil and Ian have both put up all their fancy details. Where can we get hold of you,
I
Damien?
just realised mine's backwards
yeah,
because I
yes.
switched the video.
Search for Damo.
Okay, lovely. And you can get hold of me at smartycode.com or here on the Flashbang Wallop website. Okay, so Have an interesting time. Make sure you're safe during January. The weather looks to be setting in quite hard in certain areas. So just be careful when you're out there. And we'll see you all back here next month. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, please, for us, and send us in some comments and some likes. It helps us to get up the ratings chart and get more people to see our show. So it's good night from me, and it's good night from...
From us.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Thanks very much. Bye now.
Cheers.
Bye.